Men's Health Unscripted. It's Patrick. I'm here with Coach Ben Bunn. We've got a really exciting interview for you today. He is the owner of Cigar City CrossFit and the VP of Business Development and Sales for Bravo Sierra. Thanks for coming on the show, Ben.
Hey, really happy to be here. Stoked to have an opportunity to speak with a local organization that does similar work here in the community.
Yeah, no, I saw you the other night, and I was like, thanks for being a men's health guy. And you're in the fitness industry, so whether you think it or not, you're a men's health guy, so you belong on this podcast.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So tell us a little bit about Cigar City CrossFit. How'd you get into CrossFit? Tell us maybe a little story about yourself. Know your former military. We've got quite a few former military listeners.
Yeah, for sure.
Give us the deets.
So I guess I'll kind of start from the military and kind of like work my way up to where I am now. So in 2000, I joined the military. In the year 2000, I was only 17 years old. I legitimately had to have a waiver signed by both my parents in order to swear in. Joined the military. Nothing really special. I joined as a radio operator, or like a guy that essentially works on communications equipment, general troubleshooting guy. Like if you think like the Spectrum cable guy. Like that was me, just like in the Army, you know. I just like, yeah, I show up to your house probably late or unannounced, and potentially fix some kind of some gross technical error that you don't want to personally deal with. But more often than not, I'm only able to fix about half of what was going on. But all that being said, I joined initially as a radio operator, and I actually ended up deploying to the initial invasion in Iraq as a radio operator. I had I don't want to say a good time deploying, but I did very well and showed the propensity to still act as a professional soldier, to include while at war, to include during austere conditions and this kind of stuff. And a couple of good friends and mentors convinced me to go to Special Forces Selection and Assessment. So I went to SFAS, is what it's more commonly known as, in 2005, September 2005, and made it through the selection process to be or to participate in Special Forces training. Spent about a year training to be in the Special Forces at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. You know, learned some new languages, and generally speaking, all the technical and academic and physical and tactical skills that are needed to be a Green Beret. Graduated in 2006, and then went on to serve in that capacity for several more years. Later on, I would attend university here locally at the University of Tampa, where I received my undergraduate degree. And then commissioned as an infantry officer in the military, which I finished out my career in 2016. In 2016, I retired a little bit early, a little bit ahead of schedule, and came back to my hometown of Tampa, Florida, where I opened up Cigar City CrossFit. I literally opened the gym 72 hours after I had retired from the military. So like, you know, March 14th, or I kind of left Fort Benning, Georgia on March 31st of 2016, and literally April 2nd we had our grand opening, and started having regular classes on April 18th, just the day before like my 36th birthday or 35th birthday or something goofy like that. So I've been the owner and operator of Cigar City CrossFit since that time, since April of 2016. So we've been open for just north of 5 years. But about 2 years ago, I took on a consulting role with a men's care startup called Bravo Sierra. It's a native military men's performance care brand. And they liked me so much as a consultant that after about 3 months, they took me on full-time to manage their military retail channel, which is about 150 brick and mortar locations on military installations, both international and domestic. Managed those for about a year. Once again, they really liked the job I did, and then promoted me to the position where I'm at now, which is in business development and sales. So I've been working for them for about 2 years. Still am the owner of Cigar City CrossFit, less operator, more owner. I've got a great staff of professional coaches that help me run the organization. I pretty much am only here during the evenings. I only get called when like a doorknob needs to be changed, or like
Right.
something needs to be mopped, or like a toilet is clogged or something like that. I joke around and tell people that I'm like the nighttime janitor. And as a matter of fact, I think some of our newest members probably are not aware that I'm the owner, because I just seem like I probably just seem like a particularly entitled member that is participating in class, if that makes sense. Like,
Right.
have like the ability to walk away from coaches while they're talking and stuff like that. I probably am setting a very bad example as a member, but my coaches give me grace and deference when able, so I'm very appreciative of that. But yeah, that's me in about 3 minutes. It's a good elevator pitch, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's quite an impressive resume. I kind of want to come back here and see somebody say like, I want to talk to the owner, and you hit them with I am the owner, dude.
It has happened every now and again, because the gym actually houses several businesses, right? So Cigar City CrossFit obviously is the bedrock business. It's the one that's been here since day one. But we took on a partner, Aerial Dragons. It's an aerial art studio. They do Lyra, aerial acrobatics, this kind of stuff. They came into the organization about 6 months after we opened, and they're a subtenant of mine. And then we also have Keep Pulling, which is, I would say, the gold standard weightlifting organization in and around the greater Tampa community. Ran by Patrick Costello, absolute consummate professional. He's run the organization for more than 10 years at this point. And he's also a subtenant of mine. So there's quite a few organizations that kind of live and play inside our 15,000 square foot space here in the historic district of Ybor City. So I'm like really proud to have additional businesses, additional coaches, athletes from across a wide spectrum in the fitness community. It's been a lot of fun, but it's interesting, because a lot of times people will run into me potentially from adjacent organizations and just like have no idea like who I am or what role I play in the organization. And more often than not, I'm not in the habit of like telling people I'm the owner, you know what I'm saying? Give me something for free, or I don't know what benefits come with being the owner of an organization, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's been fun.
I kind of share your belief on being the owner of some things. As I guess I'm the owner of Men's Health Unscripted. It feels weird to even say that, but I
Right.
like to feel like I'm a team builder.
Yeah.
More so than anything, and I'm a former baseball player. You having Special Forces background, there's a lot of teamwork involved in that, and I think building a team and coming together to accomplish a goal
Yes.
is hugely important. And I think in the society we live in, with some people may or may not be playing team sports or getting out of it what they need, they don't really have that background in building a team, what it's like to be a team player. How does that go into your entrepreneurship and business of team development?
Yeah, I think, and it's funny you should mention that, because I probably don't think about it very often. But I suppose as a matter of pragmatism throughout the years, through my various positions that I've held both personally and professionally, team building was an absolute necessity. And I didn't grow up playing team sports at all. I only did so intermittently. My mom, raised me on her own for the most part. And worked a couple jobs, and just didn't always have time to either take me to team sporting events. And speaking plainly, I just wasn't very interested as a kid. I was more interested in music and talking to girls and stuff like that. Once that became of interest to me, I should have known better. If I'd have gotten into sports, I would have been able to facilitate the latter much easier. But anyways. Spent the majority of my high school career or my time as a young adult getting my ass kicked and listening to Nirvana. But that being said, once I was in the military, specifically when I was in the Special Forces, working as a member on a team, small teams that sometimes are working on their own in austere conditions with partnered forces, is an absolute necessity. And it's one of the things that is absolutely essential to being in the Special Forces, is being able to work cohesively on small teams and work well with one another, and to be able to orchestrate, your personal and professional behaviors in such a way that it's not a detriment to anybody to the right and left of you. And I think that's probably served me a great deal as a small business owner, and it's for sure served me a great deal working in a startup. What was at first a very small startup, but is what is very quickly becoming a mid-sized to large consumer product goods company. And in thinking about it, being in a startup is like the private sector equivalent to being in the Special Forces. You're required to be extremely resourceful. There's, you have to hold yourself ruthlessly accountable to get the job done. You're moving very quickly, a lot of times in territory that's for the most part unknown, and you just kind of like, you have to figure it out. It's very much what it was like being in the Special Forces, just now in the private sector. It's been a lot of fun. I really, really enjoy what I do professionally.
That's amazing. Yeah, problem solving, all that stuff. That is such a overlooked aspect, I think, of entrepreneurship. A lot of people see what's on the surface of it, but really day to day, before I even got here, to a little bit of background, you're solving shit. You're solving problems.
Yeah.
And we deal with that with men's health. It is such a niche area right now. And honestly, the difficulties that we face are some guys don't really give a shit about their health. And how do we convince them that this is actually important? How do we convince them that taking care of what they put in their body is important, how they move is important? All these things really play a factor into guys developing just better habits, more self-care, more self-love. And this is our problem that we want to solve, and we're super passionate about it. So that's kind of where we're at. I completely agree with you. It's the problem-solving kind of steps.
I think back in the day, I'm going to use an analogy of maintenance on a vehicle. I think back in the day, it was probably extremely common for people to be changing their own oil on their vehicle, right?
Yeah.
Like if somebody asked me to change my oil on my vehicle right now, I'd be like, you're bananas. I pay somebody to do that. Like, what are you talking about? I'm going to lay in my driveway, dump a bunch of oil all over myself. Now I've got used oil. I don't know what I'm doing. There's a lot of reasons why I don't change my own oil. But the fact of the matter is I think when we were more involved in the maintenance of our vehicles, I think vehicles lasted us a long time, because we were intimately involved with the day-to-day maintenance of that vehicle, because this thing needed to last, and we were involved in the maintenance. And I think our bodies or our health is like that in a big way. And I think in a lot of ways, we've offloaded the responsibility of maintenance of our bodies, care for our bodies. I think we offload it to personal trainers and gymnasiums, which I don't think there's any problem with that. It's great. Like, same thing, if you had a gross technical issue or mechanical issue with your vehicle, you would absolutely take it to a mechanic. But I think that as humans, as individuals, as people that care about overall health and wellness, we probably need to start getting into the habit of checking our tire pressure, vacuuming the floor mats, like understanding that when a light goes off on our dashboard, it probably needs immediate attention either from us or from somebody else. And we also need to understand, like, hey, what is the user level maintenance? I can vacuum my own floorboard. If I dump out a milkshake in my car, I'm going to clean it up, right? But we need to understand the difference between, hey, what can I take care of on my own right now? Or what do I need to take in for maintenance, right? And understanding that when we conduct regular maintenance, that car is just going to kind of last a lot longer, as opposed to if we just like wait till the wheels come off. Now this vehicle is broken, in some cases permanently, you know what I mean? And our bodies are a lot like that, and taking care of yourself or having a vote in your own fitness is a lot like maintenance for a car in a lot of ways,
I agree. Even when you were saying that, one of the things that popped into my mind is I cook for myself a lot, and cooking for myself and changing my dietary habits. A lot of our viewers know I've probably lost about 80 pounds over the past 2.5 years.
Okay.
Cooking for myself is a way of making sure that I know that the good oil is getting into the system.
Yep.
To kind of reflect on your analogy. And I know what's good. I know how much salt is going in. I know how much sugar I'm consuming. I know how much fiber, protein, all those aspects of my diet. And I think you would probably agree that you can do all the weightlifting and exercise that you want, but you're not going to outlift a bad diet. You're not going to outlift you don't put shit gas in a Lambo, right?
Yeah, you can't. And I tell people this all the time. Like you said, you cannot out-train bad nutrition. But I tell people, hey, listen, if I were to stop working out, like let's just say, as a thought experiment, I'm going to stop working out. I'm not going to lift weights anymore, but instead I'm just going to go on a 60-minute walk a couple times a week. Potentially I'll go play a team sport like a pickup softball league or ultimate frisbee or golf or whatever. And then during my leisure activities, I'm going to push myself towards activities that maybe are a little bit uncomfortable, like stand-up paddle boarding or hiking or these kind of things. I can live to be old and gray, just as a result of doing that. Just, hey, I just stay active. I might not be the strongest or fastest guy or gal alive, but, not exercising all of a sudden is not going to kill me. However, if you have bad nutrition, if you put the wrong stuff inside your body, it will kill you. It will absolutely kill you. Like if I just said, you know what, I'm going to drink 12 sodas a day, that'll kill you. And not only will it kill you quickly. So I think it's interesting because a lot of times people are just like, you know what, exercise is the perfect Band-Aid, and they overlook a lot of these other things that don't seem so important, but in actuality are vastly important to your day-to-day health and wellness.
Well, I see it every day. I mean, as I've gotten more enveloped into the pharmacy community, you start seeing the same drugs being prescribed over and over again.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons why we started Men's Health Unscripted, because we noticed that people were coming in looking generally inactive, physically inactive. You can tell just their skin didn't look right, body didn't look right. You can tell that the nutrition wasn't there. And you start matching up the nutrition with the medications that are prescribed, and you start realizing that a lot of this is preventable.
Yeah.
And so when we talked on the phone previously, this is an organization built on prevention and health. We want to stop you, as probably bad as it sounds for pharmacy, we want to stop you before you get to the pharmacy.
Yeah.
Or if you're there, we want to get you out the door. And I feel like personally that the area of the pharmacist, everybody's prescribe. You go to the doctor and you tell them something hurts, they're going to prescribe you something. The PA, the ARNP, they're all going to try to give you something. Maybe it's the psychological component of giving you something tangible when you leave, so you felt like you got something out of your visit.
Yeah.
It's like, you say, I have a viral infection, and the doc gives you an antibiotic. Well, it's not going to fight it, but you at least left like you felt like you got something out of it.
Yeah. I've thought about that a lot, right? And I know it's difficult. Like, so if I'm a primary care physician, I've got like 20 minutes with the person that I'm getting ready to see.
Like 12.
Yeah. I've got 12 minutes. And as a primary care physician, I've more than likely, somebody brought this individual's symptoms. This person might be in there for an annual checkup. Hallelujah, if that's the case, and they've got good vitals. So I'm just going to go in there and be like, man, according to everything I'm looking at, you're healthy. Congratulations, you're making it, you're doing it. But more often than not, this individual has an acute problem, knee pain, sleeplessness, all this kind of stuff. It's difficult. It's a hard sell for a physician, even if they have a fundamental understanding of holistic ways to treat individuals that are suffering from any number of conditions. It's going to be difficult to go in there and convince somebody who's a type 2 diabetic, has knee pain, whatever, the full gambit. I've got erectile dysfunction. I'm blind in one eye. I've got type 2 diabetes, peripheral neuropathy, bad knees, the whole 9 yards. Really, it's going to be a hard sell for that individual, that doctor, that physician to walk in there in a 12-minute period and be like, okay, I need you to start eating a lot of vegetables and jogging. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's going to be so difficult to convince that person in that 12-minute span. And I feel for them because I know what they for sure can do in that 12 minutes is prescribe some stuff that are going to alleviate some of these symptoms. And more often than not, people are in there because it's not that their car has speed wobbles; they've already got a flat tire. You know what I mean? They already have acute issues that absolutely need immediate attention in order to get the car back on the road. And I know, and it's such a difficult spot for physicians to be in because of how our healthcare system kind of works. The amount of people that are just in the United States that regularly, need attention from doctors makes it difficult for them to deliver these kind of holistic solutions that long-term will work so much better than a prescription, or so much better than, prescribed medicines, this kind of stuff. And I think probably that's where, you get fillers. That's where, you get gyms that actually are taking a comprehensive look at movement and wellness and nutrition. That's where dietitians come into play. That's where education in the school system is going to be a big deal so that, we're doing things like teaching people to change their oil, finger quotes. So it kind of takes the entire community like firing on all cylinders to get everybody on the same sheet of music. But I think right now there's just actors out there doing their best to put out these fires. But I think, my hope is that we're kind of, I see over the horizon that people are starting considering health and wellness, holistic solutions, diet, exercise to be the things that need to be addressed first before they find themselves in a doctor's office asking for heart medication or lorazepam or whatever it is that they're needing to be prescribed to fix whatever acute symptoms or problems that they're having.
Absolutely. I think the pandemic in general, with all of the information coming out, diabetes, obesity, vitamin D deficiency, vitamin deficiencies in general, I guess B12, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Lack of nutrition has really changed, I think, the way people view their health, because you are such a liability to yourself, especially with COVID. If you have these pre-existing comorbidities or conditions, that I think a lot of people realize, well, maybe I need to start taking care of myself in case this happens again or other issues. Hey, my body has the ability to combat this, but I need to give it the tools it needs and the fuel it needs in order to be able to do it.
For sure. And I think one of the biggest arguments that I've kind of seen, at least kind of like happening or coalescing on like social media platforms, which, to be clear, being on social media and listening to a conversation is like listening to people screaming at each other in Walmart. You know what I mean? It's like the equivalent, it's the social equivalent. If you're on Facebook and you're in a comments section, you're essentially standing you're a bystander in a shouting match inside Walmart. That's like what you're deciding to participate in, right? But I see a lot of people that are like, man, why hasn't the CDC said anything about like health, like exercise and nutrition and all this stuff? And I was like, well, I believe they're the Center for Disease Control. I don't think their job is to prescribe holistic solutions to like those problems. And also, it's a day late, dollar short, right? If you currently have a comorbidity and you are worried about perishing as a result of getting COVID-19 or one of the variants that are floating around out there, it's too late for that. You can't start jogging right now with hopes that somehow you're gonna fend off getting the Delta variant the next time you go to Lollapalooza or whatever. But I think what is great is the fact that as a community, as a nation, we are seeing that like, hey man, it's the writing is on the wall. It's individuals that already have gross health issues that are suffering worse from COVID-19. I think now it's just a matter of ensuring there's mechanisms in place to mitigate the amount of individuals that are suffering from those chronic diseases, those chronic illnesses, that are going to leave them much more susceptible to things like COVID-19 or really just anything else. Those same people are at risk of falling and breaking their hip.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, those same individuals are already at much greater risk for injury and death outside of accidents or quote unquote natural causes. So hopefully it stands to be somewhat of a wake-up call. That's my hope, fingers crossed, but we gotta get out the back end of this one crisis before we can start. I think everybody's in a scramble right now. My hopes is at the back end of this, everybody starts getting way more proactive.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even before COVID, we had just the regular flu.
Yeah.
It would take out over 100,000 people a year, and I think we've kind of forgotten about that. But
yeah,
hopefully when we're on the other side of this, that'll kind of be reduced as well. And kind of talking to you a little bit here, I wanted to see where the place for, I'm not super educated on CrossFit. I used to be a weightlifter, played baseball, so I have some knowledge of it, but where does maybe CrossFit fit in this? Tell us a little bit more about just CrossFit in general, educate some of our viewers who don't maybe know as much, and I'm here for the education as well.
Yeah, so CrossFit did a great job of essentially applying the scientific method to exercise. And when I say scientific method, it's just observable, measurable, and repeatable, right? So I think that was probably pretty difficult to do. I think a lot of times whenever we thought of fitness, we would pick aspirational athletes. Dean Karnassus, ultra marathon guy, like ran like could run 100 miles at a time, and was like this was a striking, handsome, had what I would construe as desirable body composition. We're like, that's the guy. Lance Armstrong, 7 Tour de France's, knocked them all out after, suffering from cancer. I mean, obviously, we understand now that he was using performance-enhancing drugs. That said, what he did was still incredible.
It was.
Know what I mean? Michael Jordan, dominated the sport of basketball for years. And that's kind of how we define fitness. We're like, that's fitness. But that being said, fitness should not exist as a tournament model. It's like, hey, listen, you're going to be the 0.0001% of the population, and you just happen to exist at the absolute top of your sport. That is fitness. Well, that's not really fair to the average guy, gal. And CrossFit kind of challenged the system and said, hey, listen, we're defining fitness a couple different ways, right? We have these benchmarks. If you can do a triathlon or an Ironman, or if you can, survive a 10-round boxing match, or, if you're a professional hockey player, that's fitness. But, those things aren't going to be attainable for the average guy, gal. So CrossFit said, you know what? We're going to create a system of exercise that's adheres to the scientific method, right? It's going to be observable, measurable, repeatable. We're going to do our best to kind of use quantitative instead of qualitative data to understand what makes people more fit and how we drive this needle. We're going to do things like look at the energy pathways that exist, right? The creatine phosphate pathway, the metabolic pathway, the aerobic pathway, to understand how we can improve those metabolic pathways in order to increase performance, right? And they applied that to as many aspects of fitness as they could. And then they kind of essentially said, hey, listen, we can take constantly varied functional movements performed at high intensity. You work out for about an hour a day, 3 to 5 times a week. Try and rest every 3 to 4 days, and eat a diet that's mostly whole foods, vegetables, nuts, seeds, fruits, this kind of stuff, and learn and play new sports. And if you do these things, right, you are going to experience a much higher level of health than the average citizen. And to that effect, and I think a lot of people want to give CrossFit a hard time, or people will scoff at it and stuff like this. But the fact of the matter is it's put more barbells in the hands of average citizens than we've ever seen. Back in the day, if you would have asked, like in the year 2000, if you would have asked somebody to do a clean and jerk, if you didn't ask somebody to do that inside of a weightlifting hall, or inside of an organization that was dedicated to the sport of Olympic weightlifting, asking the average citizen to do a clean and jerk was bananas. Like, nobody understood
Right.
the mechanics to do it. You know what I mean?
Right,
even a deadlift, right? But now, I can go to F45, and there could be a single mom of 3 who's never exercised a day in her life, and she's getting a block of instruction on the deadlift. I don't believe that F45 is the organization that brought that to the mainstream. I think CrossFit is who did that. But CrossFit works as an affiliate model. So all these gyms, of course, vary by degree, not type. We all kind of operate under the same premises that I just sort of talked about. But generally speaking, we have classes that last for an hour a day. They're coach-led. Our classes, generally speaking, are between 9 and 15 individuals at any given point in time. And we do our best to, once again, constantly vary the type of stimulus that we're giving to our athletes. We want to make sure that these are functional movements that are going to appear in, day-to-day activity. The burpee is essentially just, hey, I've fallen and I can't get up, right? I tell my mom all the time, who's a member at the gym, by the way, 69 years old, still works out.
Nice.
I tell her, I'm like, hey, listen, the most important movements for you are the burpee, the squat, the deadlift, the box jump or box step up, and being able to jog, right? Because if all of a sudden you can't squat anymore, you've lost the ability to use the bathroom on your own. If you fall and can't get up, right? Once again, this is an indicator that you're going to need assisted living of some variety. If you can't walk up a set of stairs, same exact thing. If you can't pick objects off the ground, right? Or if you can't do bipedal movement under intensity, right? All these things, like one or more of all these things, if you cease being able to perform them on your own, you have to go into an assisted living facility. That's really all we're doing with CrossFit. Push, pull, squat, press, right? Stepping up, laying down on the ground, standing back up, very functional movements. All we're doing is applying a load, and in some cases intensity, to challenge that movement, particularly if you're proficient at it. So if you take an individual like me, I'm sure I could do 1,000 air squats a day, and it would scuff me up, right? But I've only got an hour a day, so I'm probably going to come in here and work on doing the best, most virtuous squat that I can. And once it ceases being challenging, I'm probably going to add a little bit of load or weights to it in order to get more proficient at that and drive my fitness level up just a little bit, or incrementally, day over day, month over month, year over year. That's basically what CrossFit is, boiled down, right? And so Greg Glassman, who of course was the former CEO and the founder of CrossFit, is fallen out of favor because he, of course, had some different professional practices and said a couple inflammatory things over the past couple of years. But that being said, when he built CrossFit, he had a very good eye in terms of taking, or approaching fitness from a scientific standpoint, using the scientific method, right? To create a system by which people could really quantify how they were going to drive that needle. And I think, him and the individuals that started CrossFit back in early 2000s, 2002, did a great job of creating a system that was broad enough that, CrossFit affiliates have the ability to kind of set up and do a lot of damage in terms of helping people increase their general health wellness on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, what I do know about CrossFit, and I think the thing that I admire the most about it is you have all the great fitness. I mean, what you just said is, I've never heard someone describe CrossFit in that way before.
Yeah.
Which has really kind of opened my mind about it. But what I will say is that I feel like the community of people, CrossFit has built a community around this level of fitness that I really admire, because a lot of times people go to the gym, they go solo, and there's different aspects of people's lives where they don't necessarily have the community. When I do some things around town, there's CrossFit gyms here and there. The people that do CrossFit it's so communal and it's so impressive.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm remiss for not mentioning the community aspect of it. And the thing that's different about CrossFit for most gyms is their group classes, right? It's led by a coach, and groups, in this instance, I think would be defined as anything, more than 3 and less than 25, right? Is pretty much what you'll see inside the gym on a day-to-day basis. A long time ago, they did a study about centenarians, right? People that live to be over the age of 100.
Yeah.
And there's certain pockets in the world where there's just high instances of it.
Yeah, the blue zones we talk about a lot.
Blue zones, right? It's like one of them's in Japan. There's one in Sardinia, Italy. A couple other places in the world. And one of the ones I thought was the most interesting was 7-Day Adventists. And 7-Day Adventists was the group of people. There's just like a bunch of weirdos in Northern California that for some reason, don't have the same genealogical background, so nobody could be like, it's genetics. It's like these jokers over in Sardinia just got great, abnormal genetics, and they're just bred to live longer. They're like, yeah, but what about these jokers, in Northern California? And they go on nature walks all the time and eat a bunch of vegetables. I don't know. They're living for like a super long time, right? But one of the things that all these communities share is very tight social networks, right? So in some cases, they'll have the same friends or friend group from the time that they're children all the way till the time that they die. And I think a lot of times we forget that humans are pack animals. We're not meant to be alone. You ever hear the phrase lone wolf? If you look at it definitionally, being a lone wolf does not sound chill. It's usually like old, deranged wolves not having a great time out in the wild. You know what I mean? And that's no way. And I know somewhere there's some guy talking about who's got a bumper sticker about 2A rights and being a lone wolf on his truck or whatever. But from my perspective, I think it's better to operate in a pack, And humans are pack animals, and it's really important for us to have tight social networks in order for us to experience health. And CrossFit helps with that, right? Because you know what? You might be at Progressive Auto Insurance or whatever your weird day job is, and you probably hate all the bastards that you got to work with.
Right.
And the last thing we want to do is bring you somewhere to be with to spend an hour with a bunch of scoundrels, you know what I'm saying? And that's not what we want. We, generally speaking, everybody comes here because they want to make friends, have fun, get results, right? It's on our business cards, it's on the wall. But I think that's really true, right? And I think and we put make friends first, because I think the most important part is community. It's the community that brings you back. It's the community that holds you accountable, and it's the community that is really this nebulous thing that continues to help drive health and wellness in a way that's not immediately visible or tangible, but I think we all know is an integral part to just being a healthy, functioning human adult.
I agree with that completely. I feel like we've built Men's Health Unscripted a lot around accountability. Accountability for what you eat, accountability for what you do. For us, being business owners, and you as well, you have to be accountable to your employees, interns, whatever you got going on.
Yeah.
And so I think the community that CrossFit builds, and as you know, I'm a big yoga guy, Annette Scott, that community is, it holds you accountable for showing up to class, for getting your ass on the mat in the yoga sense, for getting to the gym in your sense. And then I'm sure with what you eat, going out, not drinking so much, all those things are so important, because if you are that lone wolf, you can kind of do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's not fun though, you
Right.
know. And what they'll typically say is, you know, the lone wolf is in the twilight of its life, you know. So it's not the place that you want to be. And so I think community is a really big aspect. You know, community is a hot topic in the for transitioning veterans. You know.
Yeah.
You know, they talk a lot about veteran suicide. You know, suicide's the number 10 killer of all Americans. You know, it's on the top 10 list. It
3 out of 4 of all suicides are men.
Yeah, yeah. And it takes it's a big factor. Mental health and mental illness is a huge deal in the United States, and particularly it's an acute issue in the veteran communities. And I think a lot of reason for that is, you know, the day you retire from the military, you know, you're losing your job one way or the other. Yeah, I get it. You're retiring. You're going to get a paycheck for the rest of your life, but you know, hey, listen, your job and or purpose, right? The reason you're waking up every morning, I get up, I go to work, I got a job, I have a purpose, that's gone. You know, your community is gone. All your friends that you used to hang out with, they're on post. They're on post still doing the Army thing. And as much as you might be able to hang out with them out in the private sector, maybe go grab a beer, but the fact of the matter is you're not going to be spending that 9 to 5 with those people anymore. And they all have this homogeneous experience, right? We've all been to basic training. A lot of us have been to war, so we all have these things that are immediately that we have in common with those individuals, right? It's a really tight-knit community. And then finally, like your identity, right? You know, like when I was in the military, I wasn't like, hey, my name's Ben Bunn, and, you know, my job in the Army is I'm a Green Beret. I was like, no, man, I'm Ben Bunn, I'm a Green Beret. I am a Green Beret, you know what I'm saying? It is part of my identity. It's no joke who I am, you know, like my profession is a martial practice. Like I'm here because I want to like practice at war and then go execute it out in the wild in real life, you know what I mean? Like that's who I am. And that's all gone in one fell swoop. And I tell transitioning veterans all the time, you got to replace those 3 things. You know, you need to go find a job and purpose. You know what I mean? You need to shake up what you think your identity was all about. You know, because if you're just Ben Bunn Green Beret, or you know, I'm you know Ben Bunn doctor, Ben Bunn lawyer, all those things have an end date to them. You can't be a physician forever. You can't be a lawyer forever. You can't be a Green Beret forever. It's gonna end. It's gonna end sometime. So my suggestion is that you find yourself a hobby, or you find something to attach yourself to that has more to do with than just what your job is, right? You got to really kind of drill into what your identity actually is, who you actually are. And sometimes that's not fun, though, you know, because you're like, I don't really even like myself. And like, and you're like, it's probably because you're an asshole. But hey, good news, everybody kind of is. You know what I mean? Right. It's not that big of a deal. And once you understand that is the common truth, and you'll be okay. And then, you know, and like I said, finally, you know, you got to find yourself a community, you know, and you have to replace that community. I got really lucky. I just opened up a gym. You know, essentially, I built a flagpole, raised the flag, and then people started rallying around it.
Right.
And I got really lucky because I built a community. But I think for a lot of people, you know, being able to find a community, it's not just going to be good for like your physical health. It's good for like your mental health. Like it's one of the most important things ever. I can't stress it enough.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that the community of team sports for me growing up really just, it's not like being in the military, but some of those, there was a lot of parallels.
Yeah, it's just like being in the military. Yeah. It's just like being in the military. You know, you got this regimented, you know, places to be. You got to be there at a certain time, wearing a certain thing. You know, everybody knows what it's like to go to baseball camp. You know what I mean? I love it. I think team sports and these kind of experiences, these rites of passage, are such an important part of being an adolescent, but also being an adult. I think there's rites of passage as an adult that we tend to gloss over now, but I think they're important. It's important for the community to recognize, hey, this person is not an adolescent anymore. They're an adult. Hey, this person's not just a single guy anymore. He's now married. Hey, this person isn't just in a relationship with a woman. Now they have kids. You know, it's like these benchmarks, you know, that are a really big part of who we are as humans. And I think they're glossed over a lot now. You know what I mean? And I think, and they're important. And it's not just important as a kid. It's important for the entirety of your life. You know, these, you know, community, you know, rites of passage, all these kind of things.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. I did want to talk a little bit about, just to kind of transition and segue, we got a lot of good info on CrossFit, community. I want to talk about Bravo Sierra. I've been perusing around the website.
Yeah.
It's a great website. the product line, like we talked about a little bit off camera, you guys operate a little bit differently.
Yep.
And I'd kind of want to know maybe what's some of the basis behind that. Who are you kind of marketing to? What are the goals with your position in the company and how that's going to grow?
Well, first and foremost, Bravo Sierra, it's a men's care company, and there's a lot of way to make it sound a lot more fancier than what it is, but no joke, our two CEOs, two of our founders, we have several founders, but, our two CEOs and founders, they both came from the consumer product good industry. Our CEO, Benjamin Burnett, had spent a lot of time working for L'Oreal, worked with Kiehl's, Armani International, Glossier, had just a tremendous amount of experience and spent essentially the last 10 years as an entrepreneur himself, helping start up his own consumer product goods brands that would later be sold. And then, our other CEO, Justin Gilbert, started a company called Harmless Harvest Coconut Water, which was, this ethically sourced coconut water that you can still find at Whole Foods today. As a matter of fact, I think it's been one of the top 5 highest velocity items inside Whole Foods for the past decade. It sells better than anything else. So you have these two individuals that have a ton of experience working in ethically sourced, sustainable products, and had spent a lot of time working in cosmetics, and they saw that there was this disconnect in cosmetics, or disconnects in health and beauty and cosmetics, right? HBC products for men, and that there seemed to only be stuff that was probably had poor ingredients. Didn't really focus on sustainability efforts of any way, shape, or form, but were pretty inexpensive, And I'm not going to throw names out there of any other brand. I don't want to trash other brands, but essentially, they said, hey, listen, we have these premium brands that exist. They have great ingredients, absolute premium ingredients. They're sustainable and all this stuff, but they're really expensive.
Right.
So they said, hey, let's find some middle ground. We want to find, products that are of a high quality, have clean, sustainable ingredients, but are accessible to all. And one of our other founders, or several of our other founders, hailed from the military. Good friend of mine, Charles Kim, helped start Bravo Sierra. And he said, you know what, the military is one of the most prescriptive and performance-oriented communities that exist, right? And also, the military is universal. I think all of us are only 1 degree of separation away from somebody who's in the military. All of us have a friend that served, or a relative that has been in the military of some variety. So it really kind of creates this large bedrock of experience for Americans is the military, this prescriptive and performance-oriented community. So they came up with the idea of starting a native military brand, rooted in the military ethics and ethos, but had products that are extremely affordable, but have clean and sustainable ingredients. And that is essentially what Bravo Sierra is. And it's been great. I've enjoyed working with them, for them. They started in August of 2019, launched first in our military exchanges. And we test all of our products with a military community called Battalion. It's about 2,500 active duty service members and veterans who, no joke, test all of our products rigorously before they ever hit the shelf. So we've created a pretty interesting model by which to create new and interesting products. And it's a native military brand. All of our products are made in the USA, and we give 5% of all of our proceeds, all of our sales, not profit, sales, back to MWR, which stands for Morale, Welfare, and Recreation. It's a Department of Defense nonprofit that has community service programs for active duty service members and qualified veterans and their families. So I'm really proud of kind of all the brand pillars that Bravo Sierra has built themselves around, and really stoked to kind of work for a company that does a lot for giving back, not just to the community at large, but specifically the veteran community, which, for obvious reasons is really important to me.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. I think the military community is wildly underserved. You could correct me if I'm wrong. I think that once someone kind of gets out, like we were saying before, I don't know if there's really a lot in place other than people donating their time or businesses creating a model around developing a sense of community, developing that kind of sense of care for military life, just because you see so many veterans without some of the resources that they need?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Some days I feel like we do plenty for veterans.
Okay.
Other days, not so much.
Right.
Right? It really depends. It's hard to say, and I'll tell you, and that's a divisive issue in the veteran community. Personally, for me, I feel like I've been served very well at transitioning out of the military. I'm consistently thanked for my service. I get great care at the VA hospital. The last time I went to the VA hospital, I was just like, hey, I'm having a little bit of low back pain. I don't know what to do. It's a bit of an issue. I walked out of there. I spoke to my primary care physician. I spoke to a orthopedic surgeon. I got 8 X-rays, a prescription for non-steroidal anti-inflammatories and a shot of Toradol.
All right.
And it happened inside of 3 hours. I was like, this is like socialized medicine. It's happening right here, right now, and I'm benefiting from it. But I know not everybody has had the same experience as me, and I've taken great advantage of all the benefits that the military has to offer. But I think the biggest disconnect for veterans, in terms of hey, when you raise your right hand and you swear to defend the nation, whatever that looks like for whatever time period, while the global war on terror was still a really big deal, obviously that was a very different experience for military service members. Not to say that there aren't still very real threats that exist today. But you raise your right hand, and in exchange you're going to get a square deal. Hey, if you get medical problems that exist as a result of your service, we're going to take care of you for the rest of your life. We're going to pay for your education, and you're going to get a couple other benefits that will continue to serve you throughout the entirety of your life. I think that's a good deal, right?
Yeah.
You raise your right hand, I'm going to get this square deal, but I know it's not necessarily consistent for everybody, right? And I think if we were going to strive towards anything for the veteran community, it's just making sure that everybody gets the same experience as Ben Bunn, And I think that probably means education, and it probably means a little bit of stewardship, both inside the military, and then we probably need to assign people in the private sector that promote or at least provide that same level of stewardship. And I don't know if that looks like social workers. I think a great program, at least in the state of Florida, that I've seen is Guardian Ad Litem, that helps troubled youth. You know what I'm saying? Essentially assigns a state worker to help young people navigate difficult family situations, understanding that the family is going to be the best place for them, even if it's a tumultuous family setting, right? Like your parents might suck, but more than likely, statistically, you're better off hanging out with your parents that suck until you graduate from high school and then getting out of Dodge than you were if you were to end up in the foster system or some kind of other,
right.
Some kind of other end state. But I think providing something similar to transitioning veterans, having somebody out there that's a good steward to them to ensure that they're taking advantage of the benefits and all the assets that they have available to them would make a huge difference in the lives of transitioning veterans.
Yeah, I mean, you see it out there a lot. That's why I just thought Bravo Sierra was so interesting when I was first talking to you, and I was like, I'm going to check this website out and see, because I think even just the idea of self-care, taking a shower, we take advantage of that.
Yeah.
As Americans, we're lucky. For the most part, we can get access to running water and soap and
all the time.
We're pretty. And if not, you can probably go sneak into a gym somewhere.
Yeah.
And mix one in and get out. And I think when you're deployed in other parts of the world, I'm sure you see the access to those resources is not there.
It's crazy. This morning I was at my son's daycare. Important fact about me: I have a 3-year-old son, single father, and that joker lives with me, and he's a great joy in my life. Also, a big source of friction sometimes. Toddlers are busy. I'm gonna tell you right now, it's difficult. It's crazy that you don't need any certifications or training whatsoever. You can just have a kid and just be like, I'm gonna raise a human. No credentials required.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I was at his daycare and I was filling up his water bottle at the sink, and they're like, "Are you sure you want to fill up the water bottle at the sink? We have this water from over." I was like, "No, all this water is potable.
Right.
It's all potable water here in the United States. It's a miracle. I can go to any faucet anywhere. I could go to the faucet at the back of a bar and drink right out of the spigot, and it is potable, clean water. I will not get, diphtheria or anything else bananas as a result of drinking this water. Thank goodness,
Yeah, we had I'm talking to you about the tattoo shop down the street, Tabernacle Tattoo.
Yeah.
One of the tattooers that used to work there was from Cuba.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so one day, I am guilty of this. I saw him drinking water straight out of the Ybor City sink.
Yeah.
Which we're here in Ybor, and I'm like, yo,
chill.
There's water in the fridge. And he's like, believe me, it's okay.
This is good water. It's funny. I think it's great to know individuals that have lived in third world countries, or at least have had an experience that's more austere than what we have here in the West. One of the things I think is a big fitness trend right now is barefoot shoes, or being barefoot as often as possible in barefoot running shoes. And I'm like, man, I understand the holistic benefits of wearing barefoot shoes, but I got news for you. In every third world country that exists, the thing people want more than anything else are shoes. Are tough, closed-toed shoes. If I went to Guatemala or something, I was like, hey, I got you this rad set of Vivo barefoot shoes. They would be like, you idiot. I need work boots, dude. You know what I mean? So it's funny, right? But that being said, I own several sets of Vivos myself.
I've just been recently introduced to them.
Yeah.
Getting ready to order some, just doing a little shopping. So.
Woo, they're on sale right now. You can get a set for $105, which is cheap. I think they're headquartered out of Prague or something like that. What an interesting company. But yeah.
Barefoot shoes. Everybody else in the world wants shoes, and we want to get rid of them.
Hey, man, that is.
What a thing.
It's the American way. Like I said, every third world country that exists, they're doing their best to get closed-toed shoes so that they can have survivable lifestyles, and leave it up to Americans to do what they can to get rid of them. It's kind of goofy.
So I did want to say this was a great interview.
Yeah.
I know we're both just running around with chickens with our heads cut off sometime.
Mostly.
So thank you so much on Friday the 13th of all days to make time for us.
Yeah.
And come on Men's Health Unscripted. This interview, just talking to you, is remind everybody out there, stay grateful, stay happy that you kind of live in a great place in the world.
Yeah.
Come over to Cigar City CrossFit and buy some Bravo Sierra products. Other than that, Ben, absolute pleasure. Thanks for coming on and just shooting the shit with me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you.
Heck yeah.